Have you ever wanted to take a tube amp to work, but you're pretty sure your boss wouldn't like it? Maybe you want one in the bedroom, but you're pretty sure the boss won't like it. xDuoo understands. xDuoo cares. Meet the xDuoo MH-02 DAC and hybrid tube amp. For $149 US, the MH-02 offers full decoding of your digital incoming signals and plenty of power to drive your headphones. It all comes in a tiny, attractive package, complete with the lovely soothing warmth of tube glow. The MH-02 uses the excellent Cirrus Logic CS43131 DAC chip, and it'll decode up to DSD256 and PCM sample rates of 384 kHz. The analog signal is then handed off to the inbuilt headphone amp, but you can also use the headphone amp stage by itself via the auxiliary input, and you can also use the auxiliary output to drive a separate headphone amp or a set of powered speakers if you want to. xDuoo have a reputation for making fantastic compact hybrid amps. I'll explain what hybrid means in a moment. They've got the MT601, the 602, and the 604 that are all fantastic, not to mention the bigger and beefier TA20+. The MT601 and 602 are kind of similarly sized to the MH-02, but they don't have DACs included. And that might be a good thing, because sometimes including the DAC in with the analog stage can cause all kinds of noise and issues in the analog circuit. So did xDuoo ruin the MH-02 by asking it to do too much? Let's start with the problems faced by the MH-02, and that's noise. If you're looking to plug in super sensitive, low impedance headphones, like say for example the Beyerdynamic DT900 Pro X headphones, or even worse if you're looking to use IEMS, the MH-02 might not be for you. While it's not bad, the MH-02 is either picking up external noise such as cell phone noise, or it's generating some internal noise of its own. There's a very slight hiss and some very slight crackling sounds that you can hear on very sensitive earphones and headphones. As I've already alluded to, I couldn't tell if it was cell phone noise or something else being generated inside the device itself, but either way, it's very mildly audible. You don't really hear it once music's playing, but it's there when things are quiet. It's also worth mentioning that there is a gain switch on the front of the device, so you can lower the gain and that will help a little bit, but it might not get rid of it entirely depending on your headphones or earphones. So that's definitely something that you need to consider. This could cause problems with some devices. Something else to consider is that it sounds fantastic with every other sort of headphone. I mentioned before that the MH-02 is a hybrid amp. What that means is that you're getting a tube-based gain stage. That's the bit that takes the signal from the DAC and gives it the voltage it needs to make it louder. And in the MH-02, that's handled by a pair of 6J1 tubes. After that, the signal gets passed over to a Class A transistor buffer or solid-state buffer, and basically the job of that buffer is to provide enough current to drive that voltage into whatever headphones you're using. Because headphones come with all different impedances, having a hybrid design like this with the Class A transistor buffer means that the MH-02 isn't restricted to only driving high impedance headphones. It's quite happy anywhere from 16 ohms all the way up to 300 or even 600 ohms. Now, as I've already mentioned, you do need to be conscious of super sensitive headphones, but beyond that, the MH-02 is going to take care of any other headphone perfectly. This hybrid setup delivers 1.3 watts into 32 ohms, and so it's got enough power to drive every normal headphone, excluding just a few like the Susvara, the Abyss 1266, and the Modhouse Tungstens. Keep in mind though that it's also a budget device, so the quality is not at the level you're going to want for super duper flagship headphones. That's not to say it sounds bad though, far from it. The MH-02 brings a slightly smooth, slightly rich sound, but it's a great balance of solid-state clarity and tubey richness. It's not at all thick and mushy like some cheap tube-based gear can be. If you've seen my review of amps like the xDuoo MT601 and MT602, the MH-02 is delivering sound that's on par with those. If you've seen my recent review of the xDuoo DT01, which is the phone holder, DAC and headphone amp combo, the MH-02 is delivering very similar performance to the DT01, which is good because they're priced about the same. Where things are different though is that the MH-02 is just a slightly smoother overall sound thanks to the tubes, and so it's a tiny bit richer and lusher in the mid-range, but it's not losing out on any sense of resolution or clarity. It's right there alongside the DT01 with just a slightly different character. In other words, the MH-02 has a sound that's open and spacious, but with a nice sense of weight and presence in the mid-range. The sound is also consistent from any of the outputs you use. It's got 3 different outputs on the front, but they're just there for convenience. Whether it's the front outputs or the rear preamp output, they're all going to deliver the same level of performance because they're all connected to the same output stage. In other words, the MH-02 is not a balanced design. The 4.4mm connector on the front is there for convenience only. And just to reiterate it in case you haven't caught this so far, the rear output is a variable output. And so if you want to connect this up to a pair of powered speakers, you can use the volume control on the MH-02 to drive those speakers. And so there's not really a lot more to say about the MH-02. It's a cracking little all-in-one box of tubey goodness. It looks great, it works great, and it sounds great too. It's not going to beat more expensive gear on sound quality, but it's also not getting beaten by anything around a similar price when you combine things such as price, size, features, and sound quality. If that sounds good to you, I've got links in the description down below where you can pick up the MH-02 for yourself. But of course, if you'd prefer something that's a bit better with IEMS, you might want to check out my recent review of the xDuoo DT01. Or if you're only after pure amplification and you don't need the DAC, I'll link up here my review of the xDuoo MT601, 602 and 604 amplifier lineup. All 3 of those are fantastic amps, and this video up here is going to help you choose the best one for you. For now though, I want to send a huge thanks to channel members, to channel Patreon members, and to those of you that leave super thanks on videos like this one. And until next time, happy listening, be kind to each other, and I'll see you here again soon on Passion for Sound.